The Nile, ancient and unyielding, curls through the desert like a serpent of life. Its waters have borne pharaohs, conquerors, and gods. But on this night, we return to a time when the river whispered a new name into the sands. Cleopatra, born in 69 BCE, she entered a world of shifting alliances, where Egypt's throne trembled under the shadow of Rome. Her story is not one of mere romance or tragedy. It is a tale of survival, cunning, and the relentless pursuit of power. Let us begin where she began, in the sun-baked corridors of Alexandria's palace, where a child princess first learned the weight of a crown. By the age of 14, Cleopatra could recite Homer in Greek, debate philosophy in Latin, and decipher hieroglyphs older than the pyramids. Her father, Ptolemy XII, a man more musician than king, drowned Egypt in debt to buy Rome's favor, but Cleopatra's eyes were fixed on the stars. She studied under the scholar Theodotus, who taught her that words could be sharper than swords. To rule, he said, you must first master the minds of men. The Library of Alexandria became her sanctuary. While her siblings idled in palace gardens, she vanished into its labyrinthine corridors, where scrolls whispered secrets of forgotten dynasties. Theodotus, a gaunt Athenian with ink-stained fingers, tested her daily. Translate this, he'd say, sliding a Phoenician trade ledger toward her. Decode that, pointing to a funerary text speckled with serpent glyphs. She devoured it all: the poetry of Sappho, the tactics of Sun Tzu, the star charts of Babylonian astrologers. One evening, as the Library of Alexandria cast long shadows, she cornered her tutor. Why do the Romans fear us? She asked. Theodotus smiled grimly. They fear what they cannot own, and Egypt's child is a jewel even Caesar covets. She frowned. But we are stronger. Our armies rust, ideas do not. He tapped the scroll of Herodotus. Rome conquers land. You must conquer stories. Make them believe you are Isis incarnate, and they will kneel without a sword drawn. Below, laughter echoed. Her brother Ptolemy XIII, just 10, and already crowned prince, raced through the courtyard with a pack of hounds. Cleopatra's jaw tightened. He will ruin us, she muttered. Then ensure you are the one holding his leash, Theodotus replied. That night, she dreamed of Rome, a wolf with iron teeth circling the Nile. When she woke, she carved a single word into her bedside tablet: Alpha Iota P Nu Iota Alpha, eternal. But Egypt was fracturing. Her father fled to Rome, abandoning his throne to riots. Cleopatra, now 18, stood beside her younger brother Ptolemy XIII, the boy king, controlled by eunuchs and generals. On their coronation day, as priests anointed them with sacred oil, she whispered to him, "We are Pharos. Never forget." He did not meet her eyes. Civil war erupted. Ptolemy's advisors branded Cleopatra a traitor, forcing her to flee Alexandria. With only a handful of loyalists, she vanished into the desert. For weeks she schemed in the shadows, until news arrived. Julius Caesar, dictator of Rome, had landed in Egypt, drawn by Ptolemy's plea for aid. Cleopatra saw her chance. On a moonless night, she sailed to Alexandria's harbor, concealed in a linen sack. Her servant Apollodorus carried her into Caesar's chambers, unrolling the bundle at his feet. The Roman general froze. There, bathed in lamplight, lay not a weapon, but a queen. "I seek no armies," she said, her Latin flawless. "Only justice." Caesar, a man who prized audacity, laughed. "You risk death for a conversation." "No," she replied, "for an empire." By dawn, they were allies. By month's end, Ptolemy's forces lay defeated in the Nile, but victory came at a cost. Caesar's legions burned the great library. its ashes drifting over the city like black snow. Cleopatra watched in silence, her crown secured, her heart heavy with the price of power. The desert had honed her. By day, she endured the searing kiss of the sun, her skin blistering beneath a borrowed Bedouin cloak. By night, she plotted with Apollodorus and her dwindling band, a Nubian archer, a one-eyed scribe, and a eunuch smuggler who knew the Nile's hidden coves. They survived on stolen dates and whispers rumors of Ptolemy's incompetence, of Roman ships anchoring at Alexandria. When word of Caesar's arrival reached her, she did not rejoice. He will side with the boy king, the scribe warned. Rome loves puppets. Cleopatra said nothing. Instead, she ordered Apollodorus to procure the finest linen sack and sewa. Not for grain, she said, for a queen. The voyage to Alexandria was a gauntlet. Ptolemy spies patrolled the delta, their torches licking the riverbanks. She lay still in the suffocating dark, her mind reciting Herodotus to stave off panic. Of all men's miseries, the bitterest is this, to know so much and control so little. Caesar's chambers reeked of wine and ambition. When Apollodorus unrolled her, she rose slowly, letting the lamplight gild her profile, the hawkish nose, the oil-slick curls. Caesar's smirk faltered. She saw it, the flicker of a man who recognized a mirror. Their pact was sealed not with vows, but calculus. Caesar needed Egypt's grain to feed Rome. Cleopatra needed Rome's steel to reclaim her throne. Yet as they spoke, her eyes strayed to the window, where the library's silhouette loomed like a second moon. The battle for the Nile was brief and brutal. Ptolemy, just 13, drowned beneath the weight of his own gilded armor. Caesar's legions, ever pragmatic, celebrated by looting the Bruchian district. A stray torch kissed a scroll, then another. She stood atop the palace walls as the library burned. Scholars scrambled like ants, clutching charred fragments of Aristotle and Euclid. Apollodorus offered her a wet cloth to breathe. She refused. "Let me remember the stench," she said. Later, Caesar found her in the ashes. A regrettable accident. He lied. She smiled, her teeth tinged gray. Fire is only an accident to those who cannot control it. In the silence that followed, she vowed to rebuild not just a library, but an empire that would outlast Rome's hunger. But first, she would let the world believe her heart was ash. Rome despised her. Senators sneered at the Eastern witch who had bewitched Caesar. Yet in his villa by the Tiber, Cleopatra bore him a son, Ptolemy XV, called Caesarion. "He will unite our worlds," she vowed. But Rome was not Egypt. When Caesar was murdered on the Ides of March, she fled, her dreams crumbling like sand. Back in Alexandria, she rebuilt. She lowered taxes, imported grain, and donned the mantle of Isis, goddess mother, to her people. Yet her brother husband Ptolemy XIV died suddenly. Rumors whispered of poison. Caesarion, just 3, became her crueler. "The Nile gives and takes," she told him, "but we endure." Rome's hatred was a living thing. In the Forum, senators spat at mosaics of her face. Graffiti scrawled on bathhouse walls depicted her as a serpent coiled around Caesar's throat. But in the dim-lit triclinium of his riverside villa, Caesar traced the curve of Caesarion's tiny ear and murmured, "He has your eyes." Cleopatra said nothing. Let Rome think her a seductress. She would be the mother of kings. The Ides of March arrived like a sandstorm. When the news reached Hirsch's body stabbed 23 times, his blood pooling between cobblestones, she did not weep. Instead, she ordered her guards to melt her gold into ingots. Egypt is now Rome's enemy, Apollodorus warned. Then we will make Rome Egypt's debtor, she replied. The voyage home was a funeral procession. Caesarion, wailing in his cradle, seemed to sense the peril. Off the coast of Crete, Ptolemaic warships closed in, their sails emblazoned with her brother husband's falcon crest. Cleopatra stood on the deck, clutching her son. "Let them see me," she hissed. "Let them see him." The ships retreated. Alexandria greeted her with wary silence. The people remembered the library's ashes. To win them, she became Isis, not just in title, but in spectacle. She sailed the Nile on a barge shaped like the moon, distributing sacks of grain, while priestesses scattered lotus petals in her wake. "The goddess walks among us," they cried. But in the palace, she scrubbed the coal from her eyes and calculated. Ptolemy XIV's death was swift. A fig tart, a gasp, a boy king's corpse cooling on ivory sheets. The court physician spoke of a faulty liver, the servants of a vial emptied into his wine. At the funeral, Cleopatra held Caesarion's hand as he placed a toy boat in his uncle's tomb. "Why does the river take so much?" he asked. She knelt, her golden cobra diadem glinting, to remind us that what drowns may also feed the harvest. By night, she ruled alone. The crown weighed heavier now, its gold alloyed with ghosts. Yet when she walked the palace gardens, past the wilting roses Caesar had gifted her, she whispered to the stars, "We endure." Then came Mark Antony, Rome's new titan, drunk on wine and glory, summoned her to Tarsus. Cleopatra arrived on a barge of gold, sails dyed purple, her robes woven with constellations. Antony, expecting a supplicant, found instead a sovereign. "You need my ships," she said, offering wine in a crystal cup. "I need your legions. Let us discuss terms." He leaned closer, his breath sour with intrigue. What terms could a queen offer Rome? Not Rome, she smiled. The world. Their alliance became love, or was it ambition? Even Cleopatra could not say. Together, they carved kingdoms from the East, Armenia, Cyprus, Phoenicia. In Alexandria's streets, statues of Antony stood beside pharaohs. But in Rome, Octavian, Caesar's heir, seethed, a Roman general kneeling to an Egyptian whore. He raged, "This ends in blood." Antony's summons reeked of Roman entitlement. "Come as a client, queen," his scroll demanded, "and plead your case." Cleopatra laughed. She arrived not as a beggar, but as a force of nature. Her barge's sails were dyed with Tyrian purple, its decks carpeted in rose petals that perfumed the Ketinus River. Silver oars dipped in unison, timed to the beat of lutes and cithrums. Fishermen and merchants lined the banks, gaping as if Isis herself had descended. Antony waited in a sweat-stained tunic, surrounded by generals still dusty from Parthia's battlefields. He had anticipated tears, flattery, perhaps a bribe. Instead, she served them wine in a cup carved from a single emerald. "Two alliances," she purred, "and the fools who underestimate them." He was a man of appetites for war, for women, for the roar of crowds, but Cleopatra offered a hunger deeper than his own. That night, aboard her barge, they played a game of latrunicaly, the Roman chess. She let him win. "You see," he slurred, "even queens fall." She smiled, sliding her last piece aside, "Or queens let men think they've won." Their pact was sealed not in bed, but in bloodshed. Armenia fell first. Cleopatra rode beside him in gilded armor, her presence electrifying his legions. You fight for Egypt," she cried, and they roared her name as if it were Rome's in Antioch. They crowned themselves gods Dionysus and Isis, their twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, cradled in the arms of priests. But Alexandria's adoration stung Antony's pride. At a feast, drunk on Falernian wine, he smashed a vase etched with Caesar's face. "You still dream of him," he accused. She kissed him, her lips wine bitter. "I dream of us," she lied. In Rome, Octavian sharpened his knives. He paraded Antony's will through the form of a scroll that bequeathed Roman lands to bastards born of a Nile harlot. The mob howled. Senators who once toasted Antony now called for his head. "Let them see what happens," Cleopatra wrote, "when wolves threaten a lioness." Antony hesitated. She did not. When Octavian's fleet massed at Actium, she armed her ships with fire and fate. "We will burn their pride," she vowed. Antony clasped her hand, his once broad shoulders sagging under invisible chains. "For Rome?" he asked. "No," she said, "for what comes after." The Battle of Actium broke them. Octavian's fleet, smaller but disciplined, outmaneuvered Antony's gilded warships. When Cleopatra's sails retreated, Antony abandoned his men to follow a moment of weakness history would never forgive. Back in Alexandria, they awaited the end. Antony stabbed himself, dying in her arms. "Forgive me," he gasped. "I loved you." "Too late." She kissed his brow. "We loved too much," she whispered. Octavian arrived days later. Cleopatra, now prisoner, refused to kneel. "I will not adorn your triumph," she spat. "My story does not end in chains." She had hidden an asp in a fig basket tour, so the poets claim. As the venom coursed through her, she thought of Caesarion, smuggled away to the Red Sea. "Run," she had told him. "Live." But Octavian's soldiers found the boy. The last pharaoh of Egypt died nameless, a dagger in his ribs. The Nile wept. Cleopatra's Egypt vanished, swallowed by Rome, yet the sands remember. In the ruins of Alexandria, if you listen closely, you might hear her voice a whisper in the wind, fierce and unyielding. She was no seductress, no pawn. She was a queen who dared to match wits with empires, who loved and ruled with equal fire. Her legacy, not in monuments, but in the unbroken will of those who refuse to be forgotten. The Nile still flows, the stars still turn, and somewhere, in the silence between heartbeats, her laughter endures a defiant echo against the tides of time.